Everyone, thanks for being here today. We'll get started here in just a second. All right, everyone. Thanks everyone for being here. We'll get started here in just a second. Thanks everyone for being here on time. We are also streaming live to LinkedIn. So thanks for joining us there as well. We'll try to make sure we read the comments from LinkedIn as well if you're tuning in there. We are also, thanks for everyone for registering as well. So if you're in Zoom, you can definitely interact with us there as well. So thanks everyone for being here. We'll wait another 30 seconds or so as more people are still joining the webinar and the event. Thanks everyone for being here on time. Just to make sure everyone can hear me and everything is going great. I'd love to hear where everyone's located. So in the chat on LinkedIn or in Zoom, feel free to put in your location, where in the world you are. I'd love to hear where everyone's at, and always curious to see who's tuning in and where they're tuning in from. So awesome. Today's presentation is really all around cloud environments, moving to the cloud, the benefits of moving to the cloud, or a hybrid environment. And we've actually done this presentation about a year ago, and we work a lot in the cloud with our clients and understanding how to put their systems in the cloud and really utilizing the different environments depending on what organization and what type of company you are. Big picture. First, thanks everyone for putting in the chat. Great Kansas City, Los Angeles, Jacksonville, Florida, Phoenix, Atlanta, Georgia. That's awesome. Thanks everyone for being here. And that's great. And big picture though, today's presentation is really gonna be focused around looking at the benefits of moving your organization to the cloud and moving it as much as possible. And some organizations we've been able to move really almost completely to the cloud where nothing is ever stored locally. No applications are stored locally, no client's data is stored locally, and really creating, kind of a popular term in the industry, zero trust environments, or creating environments that are hyper secure because nothing's ever really stored in those environments outside of the stuff that's in the cloud, and making sure that making sure the cloud is super secure and backed up and all that fun stuff. Still super important. But yeah, big picture, we've been able to see even in the past year, but really the past 5 years, we've seen obviously a huge migration to the cloud. It started with email, probably 5-10 years ago. Your email may have been hosted locally on a Microsoft Exchange server or some other form, but it's really because of Google, because of Microsoft 365, you've seen a huge migration to that. And then file storage, right? File storage became really super popular in the cloud as well, from Dropbox to Box to Google Drive, OneDrive, SharePoint, all those great solutions. And then kind of the next phase we've seen is the phase of migrating on-premise software to the cloud. So historically, if you're a CPA firm or if you're a law firm, you may have a bunch of different tools you use to operate your business. Or if you're a medical organization or a healthcare organization, you probably have a bunch of different tools, and some of those have to be hosted locally on a workstation or server. And so if historically you've had to use a server or workstation to host those applications, we've seen really over the past couple of years a huge migration, and we've been able to help a lot of our clients move those on-premise software to the cloud. So really nothing is stored locally, right? Your emails, your files, your software, everything is in the cloud. And there's a ton of advantages to that overall, and cost savings and all sorts of features, which we'll talk about today. But there's also environments and situations where you may want to have a hybrid environment. We're gonna discuss that as well. Really, kind of some of the outcomes we're looking to drive in this webinar for you is that you'll know, and who this is for really is, if you're asking yourself, how can I simplify our environment for greater performance? Or like I mentioned earlier, how do we move non-cloud software to the cloud? Things like QuickBooks Desktop, or maybe you have a practice management tool, or maybe you have some sort of industry-specific tool that you have on your server or workstation you have to have there, looking to move that to the cloud. And you're wondering, how can we do this that way? we can decentralize things. We can make things more secure, more efficient in the cloud, and access it from anywhere, and eliminate things like VPNs. We're going to talk about that as well. You may be asking what are the pros and cons of a hybrid or a completely cloud-based environment? And then also, what's the best way to handle file storage and collaboration in the cloud or on-premise? We'll be tackling that. And if you're asking that question today, we're going to be tackling that. A little bit about us, Northwest Technologies Group, and we help organizations, really small organizations, small to medium-sized businesses, tackle IT, and we really help them spend as little time on IT as possible. I'm the director of marketing and sales, and we actually have a whole catalog of other webinars and other educational events we've done around other small business and small organization technology challenges, cybersecurity, phone systems, file storage, password managers, compliance, bunch of great stuff. Check out nwtex.com/webinars, and you can see our whole archive of other educational bits that you can learn about how you can ultimately leverage technology to grow your organization, but also create a much more simple environment. For those that are tuning in on Zoom, we will be recording this event, so expect an email in the next 24 hours or so with a recording that if you want to share with your colleagues, or if you want to rewatch a certain area, we'll be sending out the deck and also the recording. If you have questions, please submit them in the Q&A, or if you're on LinkedIn, please submit them on LinkedIn. We'll try to respond to all of them. We've also received dozens, if not over 100 questions online with people that registered for the event, that we'll be trying to tackle those questions as well in the Q&A at the end. We'll provide a lot of content. We'll also provide some actionable outcomes for you. Did want to go through the agenda, big picture. We're going to be talking about advantages versus disadvantages of the cloud, non-cloud software in the cloud, file storage in the cloud, hybrid or completely cloud-based and the differences, backup strategies, and we'll be wrapping up with a Q&A at the end. So let's jump right into the advantages versus disadvantages. So the first, I want to kind of talk about the advantages, and these are really looking at, there's obviously a lot of different aspects of technology, but like I mentioned earlier, there's really three main areas that most organizations deal with when it comes to data, when it comes to technology that's mission critical to operate their business. And it's really three areas. It's your email, it's your file storage, and it's any other industry-specific tools that more than one person in your organization needs to use. So that may be a CRM or a quoting tool or an accounting tool. So that's kind of the third area. So really looking at the advantages, there's kind of the number one advantage here would be reduce IT responsibility. So moving to the cloud really does simplify your environment, especially if you have a server right now. If your organization is between 10 or 0 or one employee to 100 employees, and you have a server, there's probably a great reason to get rid of that server, and you can probably save money and have a much more stable environment outside of all the benefits of the cloud and leveraging the cloud. Really being able to simplify your environment and reduce the cost for your IT department or your IT vendor like us that's managing your environment. But ultimately, you'll just create a better experience for everyone. It's more snappy when it comes to efficiencies and things actually working well. Things being stored locally or things being on a server, we have to use a VPN and all these extra levels of security and challenges that are in place with things that are stored locally, you eliminate by moving those things to the cloud. So I can't tell you, first of all, if you do have stuff stored locally or you do have systems stored locally, there's still a lot of organizations that are doing that. And we're doing a lot of work these days with getting people to the cloud. Hence why this presentation's so relevant and why we did it again. Is that a lot of organizations still have things that they're storing locally and they're missing out on a lot of the advantages of the cloud. But first of all, really just reduce your overall IT responsibilities. Things are more simple to manage. So a lot of advantages there. Next one would be eliminate large upfront costs. So if you've ever purchased a server or external hardware and storage and things like that, that can add up in cost very quickly. If it was 10 years ago, the cloud probably wasn't as cost effective as having a server. But now the cloud in general, and when I mean the cloud, I really mean any, sort of cloud infrastructure when it comes to file storage or email or, excuse me, really putting your software in the cloud, most of the time can be much more cost effective than having a huge upfront cost that you have to every 3 to 5 years replace your server or update your server. So you don't have that. You have easy backup solutions. So backing up your servers or workstations can be problematic for a couple reasons. First, understanding where your data lies, kind of the first question, and how I would analyze this question. Because understanding that, especially with device proliferation and with every individual having more than one device, even at my desk right now, I have a smartphone, a laptop, an iPad, a camera, a monitor, all these different devices. And depending on where the data lives, that should be backed up or securely stored. So backup in general, if you're storing things locally on workstations or servers, it's just gonna be more problematic than backing up and stuff in the cloud. And there is a misnomer, which we'll definitely cover today as far as backing up the cloud, that you definitely should back up the cloud. And we're gonna cover that here in a bit. Number 4 is a more kind of scalable environment. So if you are in the cloud, or if you are looking to put your servers in the cloud, or even your workstations in the cloud, you can really add and remove workstations and environments very quickly and transfer things very quickly. If you have all these workstations out in the field and there's data on those workstations, if an employee leaves the company, it's just more challenging to get that data back. It's hard to monitor where that data lives. If all the data is in the cloud and ultimately in a virtual environment, then transferring that data to a new employee or backing it up or deleting it is much easier to manage. So when you look at your risk factors with data and cybersecurity in particular, there's a lot of benefits there, but that just from the ability to not have so much data out in the field, if it were, but then also being able, if you want to add employees or remove employees, open up a new location, merge with another company, or you need to downsize, you're able to do that quickly and easily. Number 5 is easier for collaboration. So with your applications in the cloud, files in the cloud, emails in the cloud, your ability to leverage different applications and really manage data better is way easier as it stands really across all the applications. I wish I could say that everything integrates perfectly. And if you're a small organization, even like ours, we're not a large, thousands of employees organization that maybe have the resources to build integrations or build their own software or build their own tools. You're kind of using a hodgepodge of different applications, but if things are in the cloud, guaranteed that those things will talk better and you'll be able to leverage more integrations than if you were to have, a server or have things stored locally. And then also things just like file storage in particular. If you're storing files on a server or workstation, you're missing out on a ton of collaboration in the cloud with that. Number 6 is it's easier to maintain security. So when it comes to security and just overall management of making sure things are secure, like I mentioned before, you have to use a VPN and all these other things to maintain that level of security for a server or workstation if you're trying to access things locally. And that's kind of the best way to look at when you're looking at cloud. I would look at cloud versus local, right? Look at those two concepts, because that's really what you're looking at is, hey, do we want this thing, all of our data or systems to be in the cloud, or we want things to be stored locally? And trying to manage things locally, especially when everyone's distributed, is a challenge, right? You have employees in different locations or traveling. So that can be problematic. Not impossible, but just more challenging to maintain from a security standpoint. And as more things get into the cloud, there's awesome tools we can use to be able to manage and monitor your cloud applications. For example, a couple of months ago, one of our senior engineers reached out to me and said, "Hey, Taylor, I noticed somebody in Eastern Europe is trying to access your Microsoft Outlook account." I told him I have no idea why that is. I'm not in Eastern Europe. And they're able to put in additional levels of security on my Outlook account to make sure no one accessed it. So just things like that, you can put in additional monitoring. It's much easier to monitor accounts versus things being done locally. Now let's talk about the disadvantages of the cloud. Kind of number one would be is internet dependent. If you are having to access information in the cloud constantly, you want to make sure you have good internet reliability. For most of us, that are on this presentation, probably have vast majority of the time have great internet. That being said, if you're on a plane a lot or if you travel a lot, this can be problematic. And also if you're uploading or downloading large files. So if you're working with machinery or if you are, dealing with lots of complex, if you're a marketing firm and dealing with lots of video or lots of files, even then, having things being stored in the cloud. For example, I do all the video for our company, or do a lot of, downloading large, 30 to 100 gigabyte files, upload and download those. And you can do it over the internet pretty seamless. If you're doing that while traveling, that can be challenging. That being said, if you're in an office, there's lots of awesome ways to get hyper reliable internet. So if you are in an industry that you have a lots of upload and downloading, either get really fast internet and really great equipment, but you can also implement things like SD-WAN. You can do that at home or in the office where you can have really hyper reliable internet, especially if you're doing large downloads or if you want to make sure things don't get corrupted, downloading and uploading. That being said, cloud solutions, if you are in the cloud and you are downloading, uploading things, be sure to make sure you have great reliable internet if you want to use cloud solutions. If you don't want to use cloud solutions, I would make sure you ultimately have great reliable internet. And then that's what I definitely focus on from if you are going to use the cloud and you are a marketing firm or whatnot. The other disadvantage I'd look at is there's a difference in security. And really what that is your ability to manage it is going to be different. So if you do have a local server or things being stored locally, there's going to be a different cadence for how you manage your security. Make sure you just talk to your IT provider or your internal IT department or a vendor like us if you have concerns around the cloud security and making sure things are secure. You're going to want to make sure you have MFA, complex passwords, all sorts of things in place to make sure things are secure in the cloud. But there's a lot of cool things you can do from a security standpoint as well. The other difference and or disadvantage would be ultimately different regulatory requirements. So if you are looking to go into the cloud and you are in a highly regulated industry, like for example, a healthcare organization or a CPA firm or financial firm, make sure you reach out to your IT department or your local regulatory board and make sure you have the things in place you need to have in place as well. Next section we kind of want to look at here is looking at how to move non-cloud software to the cloud. And there's a couple ideas I want to throw around here that we've been able to see recently for clients that have been pretty exciting. The main one being is that you can move, if historically you have some sort of software that you have to have on a workstation, QuickBooks Desktop, or some sort of practice management software, or some accounting tool. Like if you're a CPA firm, you may have 5 or 6 different accounting tools you're using to manage your clients. Or if you have some industry specific tools that you're using for your clients, you can now move those to the cloud with a couple different options. And these are actually some relatively new tools that have come out in the past couple of years, have become more popular in the past couple of years: Microsoft Cloud PC and Azure Virtual Desktop. I will make it note that Microsoft loves to change their product names every 3 to 6 months. So these might be different names. They were probably something different 6 months ago, and they probably will be something different in 6 months. But what they're called now is Microsoft Cloud PC. And what that is that's actually a virtual environment. And this gets a little meta and also even for somebody that's worked in the industry for a while, challenging to sometimes wrap my head around. But essentially what you're doing is you are logging into a computer that is your computer in the cloud. It's kind of a stagnant computer in the cloud, or it can be really whatever you want in the cloud, but it can be your computer in the cloud with your tools and your files and your, Outlook and all of your stuff in the cloud, that you log into in a browser. If you think about it in that way, that you're actually logging into it in a browser. So you're logging into the cloud, but it's your individual computer. How this is different, how the Microsoft Cloud PC is different from maybe you're logging into your laptop remotely or your server remotely, is that your computer is actually in the cloud and all of your data stays in the cloud. So your local workstation actually nothing is stored there. Nothing actually lives on your actual workstation. You have to log into the cloud to access all of your client data, access all of your information. This does a couple things. First, it creates most notable is a zero trust environment, and ultimately increases security, because you're able to create an environment where ultimately your computer is a zero trust environment, because nothing's stored there, right? You don't need to put any trust in it. You don't need any cybersecurity for that workstation, because ultimately nothing's stored there. So that is really actually how I personally see the future of technology, is where nothing's going to be really stored local. It's all going to be in this cloud environment that we're all going to log into. The efficiencies, the cost effectiveness, the security. There's a lot of cool things like you eliminate the need for a VPN. It's really compatible with any software, because really it's just your workstation in the cloud, right? So any tool that you need to have on a local workstation that you can't be in a browser, you can just log in and access it. And then this is really, the scalability of adding, a ton of, new workstations or transferring data, backing things up. You get all those benefits of the cloud in this environment. The other one is Azure Virtual Desktop. That one's a little bit different. And honestly, I would want to bring in an engineer to understand kind of the benefits of it. But it's a little bit different in the environment that I think they're more stagnant environments where you would have, just a set of software and then you'd have people access it remotely, instead of everyone having their own PC in the cloud. So yeah, there's some differences. Big picture, the big takeaway with these tools are that you're able to ultimately put all of your software, all of your hardware, really everything that you have on your local workstation in the cloud. And even if you need to have a piece of tool, a software that you're like, hey, I can't put this in the cloud, there's not a cloud version of it, you can still put it in the cloud with Microsoft Cloud PC or virtual Azure Virtual Desktop. We're doing a bunch of work in this space. It's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting to see the efficiencies and the more stable environments, especially with organizations that have to deal with a lot of different software that they need to have in the cloud. Does a lot of cool stuff there. Next section I want to talk about is kind of around file storage. And this is one of the other pillars, right, of really those three different pillars I talked about earlier in regards to file storage. Ultimately, though, the file storage talking about today really is going to be talking about in regards to all the different aspects of putting stuff in the cloud. So this could be OneDrive or SharePoint. Some platforms do these things better than others. And spoiler alert, we help our clients work in a lot in the Microsoft 365 space. So OneDrive and SharePoint are great tools that are kind of introductory tools for file storage. If the clients have more complex needs with file storage, NetDocuments, Citrix Share Files, another great solution as well. But these are some overall outcomes you can consider when you want to put your files in the cloud. If you are storing your files locally or on a server or workstation, here's some of the benefits of moving things to the cloud. Ease of use. It's very intuitive. You'll have easy access, faster file access with things in the cloud. Number two, securely sharing. This is probably one of the most biggest advantages of having file storage in the cloud, is being able to share things securely. Storing things locally and or emailing files is really not best practice and can be a security risk for your organization. We recommend storing all of your files in the cloud and then securely sharing those with your clients through some sort of portal where the client and or vendor or team member, whoever you're sharing the file with, has to authenticate themselves through a password and maybe even a multi-factor authentication. You can do this easily excuse me, with a lot of file storage solutions in the cloud. And Dropbox, Citrix ShareFile, OneDrive, even Google Drive, they all do this, and some do them better than others. Another solution you can do is collaborate with clients and team members. Things like real-time collaboration, revisioning, different versions of the documents or files, commenting. These are all different ways you can collaborate with people on documents. If you use Word or Excel or PowerPoint, OneDrive and SharePoint are great for this, where you can collaborate in real time with people and, add comments, see different versions of the documents. These are all things that are really hard to do over email and or, on a server or a workstation. So great advantages of having your files in the cloud. Next one would be more cost effective. So believe it or not, storing files locally is really not cost effective anymore. Microsoft includes a terabyte of storage per user in their business subscription. And they include email as well, and obviously all the other suite of tools, Teams and Outlook and all those fun tools. So it's very reasonably priced, and compared to having a server and or workstations, and then it's also easily scalable. Number 5 would be easier to back up. It's much easier to back up the cloud and or transition the cloud to another solution if it's already in the cloud. If it's stored locally or on a workstation, it's harder to back up. Last but not least, easier to implement and maintain. It's much easier to ultimately maintain a cloud storage. Like I mentioned, whether it's migrating to a new solution or just maintaining it, backing it up, making sure it's secure, making sure it's reliable, troubleshooting, all those things are easier when it's in the cloud. So if things do break, or if you do have issues, your IT department or somebody like us, an IT vendor, can help you tackle it. So before we jump into the next section, if you do need help and you want more help with moving your organization to the cloud, or if we piqued your interest with some of the hybrid environments or moving to Microsoft Cloud PC, reach out to us, nwtex.com/let's talk. You can book a 30-minute free consultation with us. We'll talk about your organization's particular needs and see if we can't help you move to the cloud. Another our next section I want to tackle is really understanding the hybrid environments and what would be the benefits of having a hybrid environment. So we kind of hint on this earlier, but it would maybe make sense to have a hybrid environment if you're a marketing firm or an engineer firm or a design agency that deals with large files, and you have software that can't be hosted in the cloud. So these are all things that that are like, hey, these are roadblocks that we've experienced from doing things in the cloud that you may want to consider a hybrid environment. If not, even in these situations, we still have been able to help these organizations go completely to the cloud. There may be some advantages to have some things on premise. There is some rare situations, 90% of the time, though, 95% of the time, it makes sense to go completely cloud-based, especially if you're an organization under 100 employees and don't have enterprise or complex needs. Next section kind of want to tackle is really backup strategies. So this really is kind of focused around understanding, do we need to back up the cloud? How do we back up the cloud? And what are the next steps for it? So backing up the cloud is still important. Google, Microsoft, all the cloud providers still recommend that you back up the cloud and ultimately have have your own backup of all your own data for a couple different reasons. Number one, if you accidentally delete something in the cloud, the data after a certain period of time is probably going to be completely gone. After 90 days or so, Microsoft, Google, any of those providers, the data is probably going to be gone and you won't be able to retrieve it. They guarantee they won't lose your data, but they don't guarantee that if you were to accidentally delete something or any sort of negligent deletion, you wouldn't lose something. And then also, in the really, really rare situation that a provider loses information, that you could lose it. I've never seen a large provider like Google or Microsoft really lose any data for their clients. But we have seen people delete stuff, right? Or have experienced a cybersecurity breach that they caused, that they lost data. So having your own backup is important for ransomware, for malware, for accidental deletion or negligent deletion. So yeah, this is ultimately big picture. I want to save some time here for some Q&A questions. So please submit them. I know we got a couple that people have submitted. We'll to tackle those. But big picture, kind of as you're evaluating whether to move to the cloud or not, there is a myriad of different options, but really big picture, it's looking at your organization's specific needs for cloud solutions, and then going from there. There is a lot of different options, and depending on your organization size and or requirements, moving to the cloud could be easy, or it could be more challenging, where you want to have a more complex solution like Microsoft Cloud PC or Azure Virtual Desktop. We're doing a lot of different areas there. Like I mentioned, though, there's really 3 different areas you should look at for migrating to the cloud or leveraging the cloud or looking at your technology. You have your email and your email provider. You have your, which usually encompasses calendar, functions, things like that. You have your file storage and where all your files live. And then you also have your kind of third-party applications and software. So you probably have your emails in the cloud, right, with Google or Microsoft. You probably may have already had your files in the cloud, but now looking to get all your different industry-specific software in the cloud, and making sure that's all in there. And whether it's directly with the provider in the cloud, right, or whether it's using a solution like Microsoft Cloud PC. Those are kind of the 3 levels we would look at for your organization to help you analyze how to move all those different pieces to the cloud, or leaving them on premise if that makes the most sense. Big picture, though, you'll ultimately be kind of future proof, getting yourself ready for the future, right? Because who knows where technology is going to go. Moving off-prem, though, is really where most organizations are going. And there's tons of advantage of it from a security standpoint, collaboration. If you want to grow into a fully remote company or have offices in multiple locations, there's all these advantages that you really are enabling your organization, in addition to all the cost-saving initiatives and efficiencies you gain. So tackling some of these questions that have come in. First question is, how many employees are the organizations that you work with? Thanks for the question. We usually work with organizations anywhere from 5 employees upwards to 200 employees, 250 employees. So really small organizations, small to medium-sized organizations, depending on how you classify that. And we work with a lot of professional services, things like law firms, CPA firms, financial firms, healthcare organizations, consulting groups, engineers, architects, a lot of professional service organizations. But then also, we also work with organizations that are landscapers or construction and all sorts of different other organizations. So depending on your organization's needs, we'll kind of create a custom solution and help you manage your technology. And our organization ultimately helps, we partner with organizations on an ongoing basis. So we can help you get to the cloud, and then we'll help you manage those cloud environments. We'll help you manage all of your technology on an ongoing basis as well. Another question that came in, thanks for the webinar. 2 questions. Is there still a case for not moving to the cloud and staying wholly or in part in a local server mainframe? What if the cloud is more expensive than remaining on premise? What would you recommend? That's a great question. And depending on the additional cost for moving to the cloud, I would evaluate calculating that accurately and making sure you're including your actual support cost for maintaining a server versus the cloud. In addition to all the benefits you'd get from the cloud. So I would include that in your calculation for your cost benefit analysis. But then moving from there, there is, a myriad of, there's at least 5 different major ways you can move to the cloud. So if you may have only analyzed 1 or 2 of those areas. So that's the other question to ask is to what areas have you analyzed moving to the cloud? If you've strictly analyzed moving to, for example, if you're using a practice management tool and there's an on-premise version and there's also a cloud version that the provider gives you, then the cloud version that they're probably going to charge you a lot more for the cloud version. Well, there's actually ways to put that software in the cloud, the on-premise version that you could share in your organization, that we could look at that maybe is more cost effective than going to their cloud version. Hope that answers your question. Please reach out to us. I'm going to put it in the chat as well for questions in regards to if you need more help. Next question that comes in is, what is the process for backing up the cloud? So there's a couple different options. It depends on where your data lives and what provider you're with. But essentially, we would recommend a cloud provider. Our clients that we work with, we actually provide the solution. Depending on where you want the data to go or where your providers are, we'll have different solutions for that. But it depends on, number one, what data are we backing up, right? What provider is it? Because depending on where the data lives, they'll have different challenges or different solutions. And then, we'll look to back it up. And we have a couple different solutions we use depending on where that data is. Biggest thing is where's the data, right? Is it in a CRM? Is it file storage? Is it emails? Is it all the above? That's our first main question we'd ask. Another question is another backup question. What's the process for backing up the cloud? Does Microsoft give that option? So yes, Microsoft has some solutions that they recommend. And we have solutions that we use for Microsoft as well for backing up OneDrive, SharePoint, your emails, calendar, all that fun stuff. When calculating the TCO, what is the expected lifetime of the cloud's solutions? I'm actually not familiar with the TCO. Presume that's the cost and or analysis. It depends on the love total cost. Thanks for clarifying. Things that you're looking at for kind of expected lifetime. I mean, the cloud is, as it stands right now, once you're at a solution, there's really no reason to move. That might change, right? 3 to 5 years down the road. If you expect to change every 3 to 5 years, I would analyze the cost benefit from a maybe 5-year standpoint, that if you were to change cloud providers down the road, maybe 5 years would be a good lifetime expectancy. And so I'd amortize the monthly cost over that. And then, calculate the total cost over that, and then compare that with the cost of having hardware, IT support, downtime, the lack of efficiencies of on-premise and locally stored stuff versus cloud solution. Sarah asks, we recently migrated from G Suite to Google. There's a lot of anxiety with employees and distrust with utilizing the cloud. Not sure if they even understand it. Do you provide training for organizations specific to how to utilize the technology they have and how to feel comfortable with storing documents in the cloud? Great question. And yes, we're a Microsoft partner and reseller. We can help train your organization and help support your team. Feel free to reach out to us, and happy to talk about how we can be your provider long-term with that. Technology, is Microsoft. We recommend Microsoft a lot, and we also have clients that use Google products as well. Google G Suite, is now they changed their name a couple times too. Is now Google Workspace. They're great as well. If you're a business and you use the Word and Excel and Outlook and use all those applications, recommend standardizing on Microsoft 365. And they have a great platform. It's not perfect. You're going to have challenges with it. That's why I definitely rely on a partner, a Microsoft partner like us, or the partner you have in place to utilize those tools, because they're not always intuitive. And I would say Google products are definitely more intuitive than Microsoft. I wish Microsoft, things would work sometimes better. Overall, though, the ecosystem has a ton to offer. And if you're comparing ecosystems, the Google versus Microsoft or anything else, Microsoft is definitely a leader in kind of the overall cloud ecosystem. That's why we recommended, the Microsoft Cloud PC or the Azure Virtual Desktop. We've been using a lot of those tools as well in that ecosystem, but also the regular Microsoft 365 ecosystem like Word and Excel and Outlook, hosting your email, Microsoft Teams, awesome platform. If you actually go to our website, nwtext.com, you can access. We do a webinar pretty regularly on Microsoft 365 and just best practices and things we're learning and things that are new and exciting with the ecosystem there. So check out our website for that if you want to learn more about the Microsoft ecosystem. Great. I think we got all the questions covered. Checking and seeing if there's any other questions. Thanks for everyone tuning in. I hope this was helpful. If you are tuning in over Zoom, be sure to look out for the recording and the deck. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to us, nwtext.com/let's talk, schedule a one-on-one time, or you can reach out to us at hello@nwtext. Thanks everyone for spending time today. Hope this information was helpful. Take care, and we'll see you next time.